You know, I'm trying my best to stay in the light and not get pulled back into the darkness, but I feel an obligation to try to understand where all the money has gone. So one thing that I do know is that the NHLPA, the NHL Players Association, is sitting on a war chest of almost over $200 million that they've accumulated because of player dues, which I was a part of. They're also sitting on a war chest because of suspension money, which I definitely was a big part of, to help former players that need it. So my question is, number one, now I come from the corporate world, and I know that there are CEOs, there are people that are appointed, but I know that these individuals must answer to a board in order to make decisions. So what I'm going to start doing on behalf of current players who are paying and former players who are paying or who have paid dues and that are continuing to suffer and not getting any answers, and it's tough to get phone calls returned, similar to my experience, I am going to start initiating an investigation into understanding why and where and how all of this money is being spent. And if it comes to a point where I have to file a lawsuit, I am well versed in doing that. And I'm happy to do that on behalf of former players and current players, because I do believe that there needs to be a little bit more transparency into what the NHLPA is doing for former players, as well as if they're funding the NHLPAA, which is the NHL Players Association alumni. And I want to know where the money's going, because guys are continuing to fall through the cracks. You see it with the recent death of Chris Simon, and I've left this alone, but I've been saying the exact same thing and beating the same drum now for almost 9 years since I retired in 2015, and it doesn't seem to me that things have changed. And I've talked to the medical professionals, and I've actually gotten into a couple heated discussions where, there's a lot of legalese language, meaning that they will say, well, it's not an approved medicine yet, so we can't prescribe. But I will say that magic mushrooms, psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, has been deemed FDA breakthrough therapy designation with 3 different companies, and they're treating the sickest of the sick. They are treating treatment-resistant depression and major depressive disorder. And there's 23 states now with active adult therapeutic use framework and a regulated framework for adults to go to 23 states to try psilocybin for any number of conditions. There's also a lot of cities, I think 32, that have decriminalized psilocybin specifically. So I want to know from the medical professionals and hear from them. I'm going to do some digging for the guys, and this is just unacceptable. So I've left this life behind, not behind, but I haven't been active in pursuing this because I've been actively building businesses to address the sickness, because I inherently know that people are going to get sick, because the NHL is the last professional sports league to admit a link between repetitive head trauma and neurodegenerative disease. So there's always going to be a sickness. So I went over to the other side and created programming, but I feel like I'm getting called back now to ensure that we do some digging to see where this money's going, and make sure that it's not just going to, NHLPA executives to stay at the Four Seasons and have their soirees and pay their salaries. So let the digging begin. Here I come.